right, let's bring in Chris Mannix, Sports Illustrated senior writer. He was at Game 4, Celtics-Nets last night, covered the entire series, and he joins us now. Chris, what's your takeaway from what you saw in this series?
On the Celtics side, they're as good as any team left playing in the NBA. You kind of knew that coming into this series because of the way they've dominated defensively, the best team in the NBA by a country mile, since January 1st by a lot of metrics.
Well, you also they were 23 and 24 at one point, and then they went on a run.
The turnaround has been remarkable. We can get into that, but I'm just like the way they defended Kevin Durant was the best I've ever seen Kevin Durant defended in a series. And there are mitigating factors for Durant. Steve Nash, how he let Kevin Durant just hang out there for 46 minutes in Game 3 and 47 minutes in Game 4. I mean, Dan, how bad must Cam Thomas be that you can't play him for 5 minutes while Durant is exhausted? Durant missed that free throw at the end of the fourth quarter that would have given the Nets a chance. And look, the guy doesn't miss a lot of free throws. You had to wonder in the moment, was it because he was so tired from playing all those minutes? But give the Celtics credit. Their defense was excellent, whether it's Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Grant Williams, who's emerging in this playoffs as a terrific defender. They are as good as it gets defensively in the NBA, and that defense is transferable. You can play that defense on anybody across the league.
Since January 8th, including the sweep of the Nets, the Celtics 37 and 10. If you're going to point one finger of blame in the Nets' direction, which direction?
Kyrie for starting all this. I mean, Kyrie's spoken a couple of times during the series about chemistry issues and the inability to develop cohesion with the team. Well, whose fault is that? This team wasn't able to get him on the court for more than half in the first 3 quarters of the season. That played a factor in all this. And outside of Game 1 and some decent minutes in the fourth quarter of Game 4, Kyrie didn't just show up. I mean, I had people within the Boston organization that were talking about how it's eerily reminiscent to how he played in that second round series against Milwaukee a couple of years ago, where he just seemed checked out of the series. So, I mean, there's a lot of blame to go around, but I mean, Kyrie has to absorb the bulk of it, both for what he did during the season that prevented them from developing that chemistry to how he played outside of Game 1 of the series.
Do you think the Nets are going to give him a max deal?
I don't know what choice they have. The Nets would prefer not to, obviously. But is there some team out there that would? Is there, and I'm just making this up because they always do crazy things, but would Sacramento out there, give him a max level deal and they would lose him for nothing? The Nets don't have a lot of moves here, Dan. I mean, Kevin Durant is locked up. Joe Harris is locked up coming back. Ben Simmons, he's got 3 years left in his contract and is untradeable at this point. You let Kyrie walk, it's not like you clear this max level cap space to go out and get somebody else. It's Kyrie or it's nothing at this point. And as dangerous as it is to give him a 4-year contract or a 5-year contract, even in the neighborhood of $200+ million, what else are you going to do? They made their deal with the devil, so to speak. And this is kind of what this team's going to look like moving forward.
Ben Simmons and his agent reportedly had a meeting with the Nets yesterday. Why would you have a meeting on the day of maybe, an elimination game, potential elimination game, about your playing status or future, or what the hell's going on?
Well, I think they had to, Dan, because there was disappointment within the Nets organization that Ben Simmons wasn't going to be available for Game 4. I mean, everything that seen leading up to Sunday was that Ben Simmons was getting there. He came out and spoke late in the week about how he was feeling better, how he had no concerns about jumping back into the fray. Steve Nash said on Saturday that he had a great 3-on-3, came out of it feeling fine. And then Sunday morning comes along and he's got this back issue and he's not ready to play. So I think they had to address it head on with Brooklyn because there was definitely some disappointment reverberating through the organization. I was honestly a little bit taken aback, Dan, that even though he wasn't playing, he wasn't there on the bench. He wasn't supporting his team in an elimination game at the Barclays Center. Now, the Nets officially said it was because of his back, but I mean, come on, like sitting on the bench, for a couple of hours in what could be the last game of the season is really going to impact your back. I got to believe, and this is more speculation than anything else, that there was some anxiety within Simmons' team about fans turning on him sitting there on the bench in his very multicolored outfits and drawing the ire of fans that were seated in the nearby sections.
I just don't understand the organization. They should have had one voice, and that one voice was going to say he's not playing unless there's something miraculous that's happening. He's not going to play. So let's just take the topic off the table. And then he comes out and he goes, I can't play in game 3, but I could play in game 4. Well, he's doing this to him. This is self-inflicted as well. But the Nets did this as well. How the hell do you get a herniated disc in your back if you haven't played all? He hadn't played at all in a year.
It's an indictment of not what Ben Simmons did once he got to Brooklyn, but of what he didn't do while he was in Philadelphia. When he was with the 76ers, even though he wasn't playing, he had access to everything that they had to offer there. He could have gone into the facility every single day, worked with the coaching staff, worked with the medical staff, worked with the training staff, at the very least, made sure his body was in tip-top shape. Now, the back injury, it predates this season. I mean, you go back to 2020 when he had to sit out at the end of the pre-pandemic season. He was dealing with some back problems. But if you haven't played since last June, and you're not going to play for Philadelphia that season for whatever reason, you have an obligation to make sure you're as physically healthy and to be in that kind of condition and dealing with that type of issue is really inexcusable.
I'm watching James Harden. I just don't get what happened to James Harden. And then he took 11 shots last night. He knows that Joel Embiid is hurt. I have to have him take 25 shots.
Yeah.
Right?
I just don't, last year when James Harden got hurt, when he struggled a bit down the stretch, you attributed it to the hamstring. You said, all right, he's got a hamstring issue, young, 32, 33, he'll be okay. But he doesn't have the burst he once had, Dan. Like when he was at his best in Houston, he got you on his hip. He went by you. He got to the free throw line. I think we've been so focused with James Harden about how the referees have changed how they call the game. He's not getting the same foul calls. That's the issue. I don't think that's it. I mean, I've watched a lot of James Harden over the years. He's not getting to the rim in the same ways he used to get to the rim. And look, he's had multiple hamstring injuries over the course of his recent career. Is it ever going to come back? You talked about Kyrie and the dangers of giving him an extension. I mean, James Harden's made it clear, like he's going to be looking for that $270-something million 5-year contract when this is over. That is going to be an albatross around the necks of the 76ers for years to come. Think about where this team would be if Tyrese Maxey wasn't playing out of his mind early in this series. So, these next couple of games, they're a referendum on James Harden. Joel Embiid, that thumb's not going to get any better. We know that. That's a torn ligament in his thumb. He's going to play through it, and I give him credit for that. But this is where James Harden has to step up and make plays. Or this Sixers team, they absolutely could become the first team to go out after being up 3-0.
Great to talk to you, Chris. As always, we'll check back in with you during the postseason. Thank you.
You got it, Dan.
That's Chris Mannix, Sports Illustrated senior writer.